Hello, hello, everyone. It's another great Wednesday. Thank you for joining us here. We're here every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Arizona Mountain Standard Time. My name is Tahuti Forever. I am the architect of Melanation. And we're here today to speak to the family. We have our reoccurring co-panelists here. Who would like to introduce themselves first?
Well, I'm going to jump right on in there. This is
All right.
Lizzie.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Lizzie Woody, the um, the public relations person. Let me untwist my tongue here for Melanation, and glad to be here with you guys again.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Yes, Miss Lizzie Woody is our public relations manager. She's in charge of making sure that our appearance to the public is correct and done right. Okay, who else would like to introduce themselves?
All right, I'll jump in. I am Unity Unique from Phoenix, Arizona, and I am the founder of the Art of Forgiveness. And I am here with Melanation, all about community, and I do outreach.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Last but not least whatsoever, Miss Tanene.
Divine evening. I am author Tanini Mason, known as an anthology visionary. I help and encourage people to tell their God-given empowering stories to the world and become number one best-selling authors. I also am the senior executive vice president for and co-founder of two 501c3 organizations. I sit alongside my identical twin sister, being the founder. And here at Melanation, we're building our own tables. We're really encouraging the world to come to our tables that we are building, and it's all about unity. For sure, I am. It is an honor and pleasure to be a co-host here in this palace, for sure.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe.
Not Shay.
All right. If someone can let the audience know where we can be found here.
Well, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. That is Mountain Standard Time, Arizona time. On our YouTube channel, which is Melanation app. That is our YouTube channel. Um, what am I missing, you guys? Um,
Yes, indeed.
Weekend where they
So
could find us at, where they could find us at this weekend.
true.
oh, okay. Yes. This weekend, which is the 18th of April at 11 o'clock, we will be a part of Fam Blam. That is a community organ. It's a community event that's being held at Hermoso Park, which is on 20th Street, around 20th Street and Southern Avenue. And it's going to be, uh, we're going to have the vendors, they're going to have food, they're going to have speakers, um, places where the kids can play. But, we're looking for you guys to come out and see what we're up to because we are going to be a vendor there, if I didn't already say that. And we're looking to connect with the community so you could figure out, so you can know a little bit more about Melanation app and what we plan with you in mind um, going forward. So please come out and join us.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. We can also be found on our website, which is melanation.co. So we can be found on YouTube under Melanation App, Facebook under Melanation App, Cash App at Melanation App. We can be found at melanation.co. You can reach us at either of those platforms. That being said, let me go ahead and play our little commercial here.
The emergence of an inspired event is now on the move, requiring all hands on deck. So here's why you should share. We have substantially invested in a systematic approach to Black economics. Our mission is to empower and uplift our community, both online and in the physical world where birds fly. Interestingly, your monthly vote steers the direction of the company. Introducing Melanation, a cutting-edge TV and an internet platform. It's making its way to the world stage with over 400 pages of state-of-the-art features. Features include movie streaming, a production studio for influencers where your production will be displayed through the television, a dating site that can be accessed through the TV, a Google Maps-powered satellite mapping system for registered Black-owned businesses and entertainment, making it easier for you to locate the community near you, and much more. We're bringing everything the community needs under one roof in order to build the proper infrastructure across the nation. Learn more on the Facebook page, family.
Shay, that's the project that we're working on. That's our main project, which is the Melanation app. So if anyone would like to explain to the audience, why do we come on here every Wednesday at 6? What is the purpose behind that? Why do we bring ourselves and schedule ourselves 6 p.m. Wednesdays? Well, the reason why that's done is so that the community knows exactly where and when we are. Because we have to keep our ears open, we want to communicate with the community. We want the community to know what's going on with us, give them the updates, as well as receive updates from the community. That's what this is all about. The app is going to be launching September 15th of 2027, and we're making moves in order to expand the app and go in the right direction.
Also, I would like to add to that, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Um, the Melanation app is a community-driven digital platform that connects people, businesses, and organizations, bringing information, resources, and opportunities into one place to empower, inform, and strengthen communities through culture, communication, and technology. Did you get all of that?
yes,
All
indeed. Yes, indeed.
okay,
That was beautiful. And I know, Miss Lizzie, you brought up the Fam Blam, which we can be reached at here this weekend.
absolutely.
So it's the 17th annual Fam Blam, April 18th, 2026 at 11 to 6 p.m. at Hermosa Park. The address to Hermosa Park is 2030 East Southern Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona 85041. So that is where we'll be physically.
And
And
just to add, excuse me, I'm sorry, just to add on to the fact that the Fam Blam is the, the the brainchild of Mr. Israel Roots, and he was our guest last week, so you may have seen him. A
Ashe,
very, a very active community person.
shout out to Mr. Israel Roots. Yes, he's been an active member in the Phoenix conscious community for over 17 years, and we are very proud of being a part of the Fam Blam, which he's been holding, which he's been hosting. Ms. Janvier, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Marjorie M.J. Janvier. I'm the project manager of Melanation, and I'm the lead for Team MJ. And I'm happy to be here. What's going on, everybody?
Okay.
Jay.
So we're on this question here. What does Maafa mean? What's the meaning of the word Maafa? Who would like to take a stab at that?
Well, isn't that the Reconstruction, like after slavery, how they did the Reconstruction of Black people coming together and making a community, just starting all over after slavery?
Reconstruction, yeah, that is what reconstruction means. Is to rebuild. The word Maafa itself, the word Maafa itself is Swahili. It means the great disaster. That's
Mm,
what the word means. It means the great disaster, and our elders have determined to use that term to refer to systematic racism in all of its forms. So colonialism in Africa, that's part of the Maafa. The transatlantic slave trade, that's part of the Maafa. Jim Crow laws, redlining, all of these things is what the word Maafa means. So that's what it means directly is systematic racism and all the challenges that we've had over the years. And this is the post-Maafa reconstruction, meaning that after we've suffered through all this time, we're now at a point where we can turn the tides and we can take control of our own destiny. So when we're talking about reconstruction, because all dynasties throughout history has always had their ups and downs, and when they're down, they call it a reconstruction period, and that's all it is. You know, the melanated people in America have been down for the last over 400 years, and
right.
now we're in our reconstruction period. That's the whole purpose of the terminology post-Maafa reconstruction.
Yeah, and this is a time that has been the best for any other times that they have been reconstructing. Now is the best time because we can reach all over the world.
That's true. We're in a digital phase, the age of information. So we have a lot of power at our disposal. So when we reconstruct this time, we'll be a very, very powerful nation of
Right.
people. So what about Sankofa?
Absolutely.
What about Sankofa?
Look,
Sankofa.
look, look. I'm going to say, and you and the next person can give their definition. Sankofa to me, it says reaching back and bringing others as well. That's just my short definition.
Ashe. Yeah, the direct definition of Sankofa is go back and fetch it. That's the direct translation. But
Okay.
words have connotations. When we say go back and fetch it, we're talking about specific things. We're not just saying go back and fetch, whatever. We're saying fetch, learn your history, learn where you came from, learn everything that got you to where you are, and don't forget it. Bring it with you. So when we're saying go back and fetch it, we're saying be true to your origins, be true to yourself. Sankofa.
Get all the important things and bring it forward. It kind of reminds me, it's probably have nothing to do with it, but it reminds me of the armed forces when they say no man left behind. So we're not leaving anything important behind.
Ashe. This is true. Now, this is what I really want to focus on. You know, every now and then I learn new phrases, I learn new things about our history. But why are we calling our biggest um, goal melanation?
Well, it's because it's about all of the melanated people. All of the melanated people have gone through something, and they had to be do a reconstruction. It doesn't matter whatever the color is; they've all gone through some of the same type of things. We're all different people, but we have the same type of struggles. Maybe not as long as some have, or maybe not as extreme as some have. But they've all melanated people have had a struggle.
Ashe. So this is what I want to share this time around for this word, because we've gone by different names throughout the years, and I'm just scratching my head learning about the history, knowing about the history and how we allowed it to stay where it is. We have never been a community that named ourselves. Our names have
Um,
always come from the oppressors. Go ahead, Miss
It's
Woody.
oh no, no, I'm saying no. I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with you. I'm sorry.
Ashe. So we've never named ourselves.
that's
So
true.
at this reconstruction phase, it's time for us to name ourselves.
That's
Right?
all right. That's good. Yeah.
Let,
We have
let me,
taken control. Yes.
yeah, we should be able to take control of our own destinies, of our own selves.
And I
Let me
personally feel that that's what we're doing.
I say,
You know, it's all over the place. I'm seeing it all over the country. We are taking control of our own destiny, and we know us better than anyone else.
so I'm making it a priority that we have the ability to name our own community. So let me share this here with you. They called us nigger, and we got offended. We said, "No, you can't call us niggers. No, that's racist." Does anyone know the origin of the word nigger? Now, I looked it up on the Webster Dictionary, and now I'll just Google it here. Check this out. The word nigger originates from Latin, from Niger, meaning black.
Uh,
Did you, did you guys know the word nigger is just Latin for the word black?
I didn't. I didn't.
You, so
No.
we set up and we decided we're gonna use that as a word of endearment. No, we're gonna nigger. We're gonna call each other nigger. We're gonna drop the er and put an a on there. And so what we're good at is taking what's given to us and saying, no, it's a positive. We like that now. So now we call each other nigger. But nigger just meant black. So how is it different when we allow them to call us black? If it's the same, if it's exact same meaning in their language, in Spanish, black is negro. It's it just means black. But we get offended when they call us nigger, right? Because the connotations that they have when they say it towards us. So it's like we decided, okay, we'll be called black. And in the 60s, James Brown, we have so many movements, and we turned the word black from a negative thing, guess what, to a term of endearment. Hey, I'm black and I'm proud. These white people still call us black. They haven't changed a bit. We're still allowing them to call us the same words that they have always been calling us. Now, watch this. All right, so I'm not. Let me see if we go back over here. All right, yeah, we're showing. So, black is a racial classification of people, uh, usually a political and skin color based on specific population of middle, often countries. Hold on, let me see if I can find the etymology of this, because it's going to come out and say exactly the same thing as the word black equals to the word nigger. It's exactly the same. While I look this up, if someone wants to go ahead and let me take this off the screen really quick and describe our mission while I'm looking this definition up here. What is the mission? What are we standing for? What are we trying to accomplish? Miss
Well,
Lizzie?
Miss Woody?
so you said Miss Woody.
I
Yeah.
did. I did.
Okay, I'm going to say Melanation app. It is. I don't know if this would be like a vision statement or a mission. It's a growing ecosystem that brings together culture, communication, and technology to strengthen relationships, increase visibility, and create opportunities across communities. Um, that is one definition of what you're asking from my
I see.
perspective.
Yes, indeed, and I definitely agree with that as well. That that does encompass what melanation is about. It's an ecosystem for to strengthen melanated economics, reaching out to the community, identifying ourselves as a community, I and I. We're basically trying to bring everybody under one roof so that we can strengthen ourselves with each with each other.
And to add
So,
on to that, we need the community's input, because that's what it's all about as well. If you're going to satisfy a community, you need to know what the needs are for that community. And we're giving ourselves enough time to collect all that data, to talk to people, to share who we are, and what we're trying to do, and get feedback from the community to say, okay, I see what you're trying to do. This is my input to how we can do those things, but we have to do them collectively. And that means community is involved as well.
Shay, exactly. We definitely need the community involvement here. Without the community, without each other, there could be nothing done. We need each other to advance and work towards a greater goal, a common goal.
Absolutely. And that's why we're out, we're hitting the street with Melanation app, getting it out there so people will know that we are here. We want you to, when someone say Melanation app, you say, oh, okay, I saw them, I heard them, I talked to them, and I like them. Okay.
Yeah, our brand is important. That's the reason why we have a PR manager who knows what she's doing in the community. She knows everyone in the community. Our branding is of most importance. We want to make sure people know what we stand for, what we're about, and what our strengths are. And that we want them to know that they have a route to reach us, and we are accepting the information that they provide, advice that they provide. We're definitely willing and able to answer some of the things that's been going on in our community. So, but yeah, my system looks like it's a little frozen. I wasn't able to pull up anything else. I have a few pages going at the same time. But yeah, one of the goals that I have is to change the narrative, create our own narrative. The word black does not suffice as far as our community is concerned. Black and white both originated from the chattel slavery when they decided they wanted to classify certain people to determine who's going to be enslaved and who's going to be the slave masters. And that's not a name that I would like to call myself by. That's not an empowering name. In fact, it's a disenfranchising name. Um, they also call us things like minority. You know, when they group us together with other races that are not as prevalent in Phoenix, in Arizona, in the United States, they call us minority. But here's the thing. I mean, we can really look at these words. Minority means less than. So no matter what, they're going to call us by something that is derogatory. They can call
Right.
us word. There's different words other than an amount that they can call us by. But they just want us to. They want to remind us that we're less than them. That's it. You know what you are? You're a minority. And we're just like, yeah, I'm a minority. I'm less than you. You
Yeah,
know,
and does the Constitution have that a black person, it takes one black, I can't remember how it goes. Something about one black person
A
equals
drop of
eight,
whatever.
eight white people equals one, no, eight black people equal one white person. Something like that. It's in the Constitution. I can't remember where. But one thing that I did like is in that movie Malcolm X with Spike Lee did that, and they show the definition of black and white. And the definition for white was pure or something like that. They were saying, no, there's no white people. They are not white. They are light-skinned, but they're not white. They're not pure and innocent or whatever that definition was there. And then when they looked up the word black, it was everything negative. So I guess that's why they call themselves white and they call us black, because it's a negative connotation with that. But white is pure.
So let me throw this in. As far as melanin, now that represents the minority uh, segment of society. Is that, the word minor? That's less than as well. Is correct? Just the
So
word minor,
Right.
and
you
and
said
then you
mel.
add minority onto minor. It's still negative.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. You're still talking about. You're still saying less than. That's what you want. The focus of the word minority is just less than. That's all. So reminding us that we're less than is a way to remind us that we're less than is to give us that as a name. It's like when you name, if you have the authority to name something, like you name a dog or something, you want to give them a name that gives them positive attributes, right? Or something that reminds you something about them. So they named us less than.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did. You know
Yeah.
what? You're less than. We're gonna remember that you're less than. You're a minority.
This is what they call us because they know better. They have to remind themselves that they think we're less than. They're trying to make us less than, but they know better. They know that black people, the Africa is where everything started. There's no way you can take a white person and make a black baby, but you can take a black person and make any color. And that's where scientists have proven that's where life started, Africa.
This is true. Yes, indeed. So at this point, we have reached our segment for our special guest called Melonomics. So let me go ahead and bring in our special guest. One moment. Hello, everyone. This is Tahuti Forever, and we've now reached the Melonomics segment of our broadcast. We have a very special guest here with us today, Baba Amani Abalanjo Bantu, PhD. He is a researcher, a visionary, and a practitioner. He's here with us today to help give us best practices in reference to powernomics, Black economics, melonomics, and the future of our nation. Let me go ahead and read his bio. Dr. Baba Bantu is an activist scholar with more than 35 years of experience in Pan-African transformation community work in South Africa. His area of knowledge includes education, epistemics, justice, leadership, innovation, and decolonial practices. In 2002, he founded Ibunashi Solutions, a community of practice specializing in African-centered education, learning, researching, and implementation of programs, which he runs together with his queen, Mama Tabago, and a big community of student teachers. His work is inspired by Black consciousness, Africology, Africology, cultural literacy, and spiritual practices. Through his work, he's been established a number of innovative, empowering youth, families, and communities. One of his Shabaka, Men of Africa, a platform supporting African men on journeys of self-injury, anchoring his holistic leadership through intentional process work. Baba Bantu also holds a PhD in philosophy educational from University of South Africa. So yes, thank you, Baba, for coming on. We really appreciate your presence here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. Greetings to all of you. It's a huge honor for me to be here. I greet you all. Thank you so much.
And again, we also have Miss Lizzie Woody, who is our PR manager here. So Miss Lizzie, if you have any questions or anything you would like to interject when Baba is speaking, please, take the time that you need to, because we want to make sure the family has the information, is receiving the information that's necessary for us to have a better understanding and a better walk through life and a better way to go. My first question, Baba, would be, what would you say are the most important initial steps to beginning the process of healing the community?
Thank you for the question, Brother Tehuti Forever. I think where I would like to start is that I think it's critical that we know and that we also decide if and why we are a community. Because I think sometimes we may have an idea that we are a community. I find myself at times referring to us as a people, but when I check, not all of us are on the same page. And especially for people who, many of us become speakers and writers and authors who say we speak on behalf of a people, the condition that many of our people find themselves in. And it is quite difficult to organize processes of healing if we don't even know whether we are a community. So I think that's number one, to know and also then to choose. And I think if we agree that we are a community, it means we also need to make a decision about, are we a community based on our oppression only, or are we also a community based on that we believe that we can undo the oppression, the state of oppression we find ourselves in? Because many of us do not really believe that. And I want to include in that even those who say they do. Because I suspect that as a people, and let me speak about those of us within our people who also are, well, they are knowledgeable, well read, know a lot of terminology and theoretical aspects of explaining our oppression. I'm not sure if we all really believe in our power and our ability to liberate ourselves. And I think that's quite important, because when you engage in a healing process, you also need to have an amount of faith that this is actually going to lead somewhere. We're doing this for a particular reason. So I think there's a few things we need to agree on. I'm not saying we should sit and wait for it, but I think it's important that as we engage with our people, also check that. And I think representing a community here in South Africa, Ebukosini Solutions, which we started 25 years ago, it's a community-based organization. And I must say, one person that I learned a lot from his writings and teachings was Honorable Marcus Garvey. And one of the things that I really studied about him was that he was somebody who could read in between the lines. A lot of the things that he started to do for and with his people was not necessarily things that people said to him, we want this. But he read between the lines and realized that people had a spiritual urge. They had an urge for understanding Blackness. They had an urge for understanding descent, history, economics. And he then engaged people in something that, through a consciousness journey, they began to understand that this is really what we need. So I think that's an important part, especially for those of us who want to do something for our community, that we also read between the lines.
Ashe. Honorable Marcus Garvey, that's a very powerful influencer of mine. His movement, influenced, was one of the original movements that pushed everything forward. Um, Now, you did mention a couple of situations or different type of people or different banners that we can fall under. What would you say is the best identifier or the best way to create the movement? What would the banner or the flag be?
You know, it's a simple and difficult question at the same time, and I'll explain why I say that. I think we have for a long time as a people, and the people I'm speaking about are those of us who are of African descent, are Africans, are Black. We have walked a long journey with different terms, how to describe ourselves. Is everyone who looks Black African? Is everyone who claims to be African and so forth? And I think we are one of the really few people on the planet that struggle a lot with how do we identify ourselves. So in my practical navigation with that is that I look at my people and the marker for our people, everyone who is, let me see, of African descent, because I'm talking about a timeline also of a people who once had certain characteristica and the descendants thereof. We know that over generations, there are other people who have come to the African continent. There are other people who claim a certain Africanness, but I'm
Right.
talking about, let me say, the original African people and their descendants. And for me, we could call it melanated, but I think the the question I would have with that term is that African people are not the only ones who are melanated. And I want to work specifically for people who are Africans and African descent. Um, I think the beauty of melanated is that it speaks to equality beyond race. It speaks to spirituality. It speaks to a certain power that many of us have lost because of the confusion that we have gone through. But I think I'm used. So you could criticize Africa. You could criticize the term Black, but I live in South Africa, and right now, those terms are quite significant in describing certain experiences. So we are an African people who come from African languages, we come from African cultures, we come from African expressions that are deeply rooted in a land, in a geographical space. And land is very, very important for the African identity. So I use Africa, although it could be a contested term, you could discuss it back and forth, but it means something when I want to explain something about what we go through right now. And although I'm not happy with the term Black, because I feel it's a reductive term. It speaks to a complexion or a color, when what I want to accentuate is spirit and wholeness and holistic life and so many other qualities. But it speaks to an experience. We have been made Black and we experience ourselves as Black. And we go through many things because of how we look and how we are seen in this world, even how we see ourselves. And I want a term for that. So I think for me, it's not so important that we need to have only one term because we are complex. We have many aspects to us. And I think it's okay that we have a few terms that can explain the variety of the complex experiences we have. But I think being African means something to me. Being African means something, especially on the continent. And I believe it means something in the African diaspora as well.
Ashe, I definitely agree with everything that you've mentioned. And as you were speaking, like you were saying, that there's so many things that can be contested, and there's so many things that points of view that other people may have. And it's important. Terminology is definitely important. And I like the fact that you opened up the idea of having multiple terms instead of just one overarching term. And I definitely struggle with terminology. You made some really good points when it comes to melanated. The focus that I would like, one, Africa, I agree with the term, using the term Africa or African, being that it ties us to the landmass, which is empowering. I definitely agree with that. Of course, there are going to be those who are going to disagree about being from Africa or African origins. And it also brings up the questions because I believe all human beings come from Africa. So when we're speaking about Africans, we're really speaking about the more modern time after the transatlantic slave trade. So if we just go from the transatlantic slave trade to now, I recognize that there are a lot of people, dark-skinned people in other countries who've been in other countries who are also oppressed due to their melanin. So the melanation will still include those people who are oppressed, who were not from Africa within the last, hundreds of centuries, but they were still subjected to racism, systematic racism and oppression, and they are still originally from Africa. So yeah, there's so many things, and that's why I posed the question as which is the best banner? Like, what is the best terminology that we can use that would encompass the people who've been oppressed based on their status? That was the focus of the question. And I think we could probably talk about that forever.
That's true. That's true. But as long as we know what we are referring to and what our priorities are, I think then at least we have a functional language.
Correct. So, what are other challenges that the movement may have to overcome before we can become successful?
So I think I mentioned something earlier about that we need to know and understand and choose whether we are a community and whether we want to work for us. Not everyone wants to work for us. Some of us want to not necessarily stay and remain us, and which is kind of understandable in one way because we are a people who have been marked in very violent ways. We have become targets for violence. We are invadable. We are overrulable. We belong to nations and land masses and geographical spaces that a number of powers in the world feel that they can invade. They can choose who's going to be our president. They can do a lot of orchestration about our sovereignty. And I think that also then means that some of us become very tired of being us and almost hope that we could be something that is not us. I'm just trying to explain that although I don't agree with it, I do understand that that sits at the bottom of anti-blackness that we have also absorbed. But I think a challenge is that also some of us are a bit naive about how have we become the way we are now? Why do we sit so powerlessly very often? Why do we even have to have the conversations we have right now? And I think sometimes we become a bit naive about the system that actually keep us divided. Because our division, there are a number of powers in the world that benefit from our division and our disagreements and our conflicts, and us focusing more on our internal turmoil than actually bringing down the systems that keep oppressing us. So I think the mindset or us seeing that is a problem to how we can overcome that problem. I think also it's important to remember you mentioned that the way we identify ourselves now is kind of a new invention if you look at the history of mankind. And I agree with that. But it's not just only that it's new, it's also that it's a response to horrible acts of terror that
I
have been
say,
mounted against us. And I think that's important to remember. I don't think it's important to talk about it every time and all the time, but it's important to always presence it in our conversations. Because it's not just that we are desperate for identity, it's not just that we are hateful against other people, it's not just that we want to talk about color and complexion, but we have to, because this has been mounted on us and we experience it every day in different shapes and forms. So it's also about how did we become this community that sits with a number of similar challenges and also looking for similar type of solutions. I think also we have a leadership problem. A number of our leaders, and I think it's quite visible on the continent, but I would say it's within the global African world, that a number of the leaders that sit in positions that are supposed to take us forward often sit in very strong and close proximity to the people who want to continue to oppress us, or conduct themselves in quite westernized ways. And that also it holds us back. So sometimes, and especially in if speaking from an African continental perspective, sometimes the last people we need to look to for guidance when it comes to the matters we are discussing right now are the official leadership. Those are the last people we can look at because those are part of the mechanism that continue to oppress the masses. So I think that is definitely a problem. But I also wanted to get to how can we overcome some of these challenges, because I think we are aware that we sit with a number of challenges, but I don't feel we spend enough time to actually implement the solutions. And this is something that I have come to be part of and see as useful. I think, first of all, let's also recognize that we are not sitting at zero. We have done a lot. I think we sit with a lot of incredible research. We sit with a lot of knowledge. We sit with long traditions of having seen a number of organizations and movements and process work being done that we can learn from, both the good part and also what didn't work. So I think we are rich in many, many examples of how we can move forward. I think also we need to unlearn and relearn. And that's where our organization comes in. We are an African-centered educational center. So we spend a lot of time unlearning and relearning. Unlearning, obviously, meaning that we have been taught a lot of toxic and broken information and knowledge. And we need to sit with that and understand how did we become so brainwashed? And how do we undo that? And how do we then become more, how do we absorb and reignite the knowledge that actually speaks from our core? We also need to create and contextualize tools and solutions. And as an organization, we do that with communities. I think as African people, our ethos or our value should be much more focused on communal processes than individual processes. But we also need to recognize that many of us have come to be somebody, meaning education, skills, careers. We have become somebody through Western education. So we also sit with a lot of Western residue that we need to cleanse off. Because as much as we may have voices of confidence, as much as we can speak with authority, as much as we can break down certain incredible theories, there might be a strain of a westernized way of leading or talking or teaching in that moment as well that we need to check and undo. And that's why we focus a lot on our work to sit in communities and to not just come with a main speaker that tells everybody what they should do, but to ask the elders, ask the women of a village or a community, sit with the youth, ask the youth, what is your experience? What do you want to see change? And through that, we then talk about history, we talk about what we need to know about ourselves, we talk about the gaps we have in our cultural literacy, and we start to bring back some of the things that I don't want to say that we've lost, because that sounds like we just lost it somehow. It's what was taken away from us, or that was attempted to be broken. So to undo that and to reclaim that and to bring that back, for me, that is a practical form of decolonization.
You mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Busy.
No, I agree with just about everything that you are saying. And I was just thinking the other day, as far as we here in Western culture and our African brothers and sisters that live our culture where they live, that there's a difference. I feel that a lot of what you're talking about, most people are not going to hear, but how do we figure out, get this information to us so that we as a community are aware and can start practicing some of the things that we have lost because we are here westernized, we are distracted. And that is where I'm coming from. I think those are some of the missing pieces, getting the information to us understanding, and we working together as a community to build our culture.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. Thank you so much for that input. And I think I always want us to also remember that great work has been done. And I think we are sitting much closer to each other now. I mean, the different African communities that we represent around the world than we did a while back. And I think this conversation that we're having now is an example of that. And both myself and a number of my colleagues and brothers and sisters have spent quite a bit of time in the diaspora exactly for that reason, because there's a number of African descended people who really want to learn more. I'm thinking Brazil is a very great example for me. There's in Brazil, amongst the African population there, Candomblé is very close to the Ifa tradition of Nigeria and Benin, and there's a very strong connection between West Africa and Brazil, where there are scholars, there are teachers, there are spiritual advisors that go back and forth to teach both ways, because there's also something that has been lost on the continent that still is within certain parts of the diaspora, and obviously vice versa. And I think, sister, I also wanted to add to what you said. I hear you. A lot has been lost in the diaspora, but we have also lost a lot on the continent. A lot. But we may sit a bit closer to it because the languages are here. There are a number of elders. There's a number of cultural practices that are alive and strong. But we are also forced to go into westernized institutions if we want a career. When we show up at work or what we need to do for employment, never favors those of us who hold on to African language, hold on to African culture, hold on to African knowledge. Actually, it puts you at the disposition. You'd be looked at funny in certain circles. Why are you so in tune with your language? Why do you think your language is so important? Why do you want to talk to the elders? Why do you always go to the village? What is wrong with you? So the westernization that maybe sits even stronger as a suffocating grip in the West, it also sits here. And I think that's also something we have in common, that this is something we need to fight back together. Maybe if I can just mention an example. As an organization in 2002, we decided that we want to continue or create our own version of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is seen as an African American holiday, but remember the research that Karenga did for Kwanzaa was done on the continent, because the idea was to, what is it that is observed on the continent that people in the diaspora could be inspired to continue, that doesn't just belong to one particular language group. And harvest festivals was one of those. And here in South Africa, we sit with a number of indigenous harvest festivals. Some of them are called Umkosi, Intwala, Tigafela, and a number of others. And we decided that no, we like what has, because Kwanzaa, in addition to be a celebration of an agricultural value, it also positions us as people who have lost a lot. A lot has been taken away. There are certain cultural gaps. And because of what I just said, that dynamic also sits with us on the continent. That's why we need Kwanzaa. Because people say, but why are you celebrating Kwanzaa on the continent? It's for people in the diaspora who don't have access to the regular African culture. No, it's for a people that have been removed from their center. It's for a people who have had their culture butchered. And a lot taken away. So for us, celebrating Kwanzaa on the African continent is also that bringing back both the cultural expression and the political consciousness about who we have become. Just wanted to mention that example.
May I add this? As you're speaking of Kwanzaa and the fact that I would say most of us do not or have never heard of Kwanzaa, but the principles of Kwanzaa represents our daily existence, and which means to me and probably to others that we celebrate Kwanzaa every day. It's not just for December or whatever. The principles of Kwanzaa represents daily lives for people, and that also is an opportunity. Just the word Kwanzaa, people are learning about Kwanzaa. That is one way of getting it out to people.
That's right. Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
No, I completely agree. Kwanzaa every day. It's principles, it's guidelines for how we should live our best African life. So I completely agree with you. Yeah.
You did bring up a really good point as far as identity and as far as culture. Like if we're creating a system for one particular culture, or is it based on the landmass? Is it based on, these challenges are something that we really need to overcome, because we take the jewels and we build the structure based on what's best for our community globally, but also based on, the community starts with the family. So I wanted to ask, what would you say the roles are between the youth? What are the roles of the youth? And what are the roles of the elders when it comes to our culture and community?
Right. So I think what I want to say to that question is I want to answer it in two ways. I think traditionally, when African culture was at its prime and when it was working the way it was intended to, young people were supposed to be guided and led by elders. Being young should be an experience of not knowing so much, and not necessarily being told everything, because a very important part of life is that you need to live it, you need to get experience. But there would be guidance, there would be advice, there would be elders who sat with you, took you through, created ceremonies for you, so that when you go from boy to man, you know what is expected from you. When you go from girl to woman, you would know what is expected from you. And you are then embraced by a community in your new capacity, as whether that is an initiation into being a man or a woman, to be a married couple, to be parents, or to be elders. But the second way I want to answer that is, because of the brokenness that we experience and because of what has happened to us as a people, it's not necessarily safe for every young person to rely on an older person. That we have a lot of elders who don't necessarily know what they are supposed to teach, because they were never guided or taught themselves. We also sit with we sit with a certain brokenness. That does not mean that no elder should be consulted. I'm just saying it's not an automatic thing that just because somebody is older and has more life experience, that they can necessarily be a good guide. So I think we also need to look at that, and we do a lot of intergenerational work, because I think in our indigenous ways of expressing culture, there would be spaces where young people and older people could talk together. I think we are all concerned about societies, both on the continent and the diaspora now, where we see that sometimes the elders are in some rooms and the young people are in other rooms. It's uncomfortable to be together. Some young people don't want older people to speak to them. They feel it's awkward. They feel they're just being told all the wrong things they are doing. They don't feel okay with it. Some of us as elders, we become a bit provoked because we feel that young people they move with a certain arrogance, a certain attitude, a certain way, and we need to tell them that they are wrong. So these dynamics are not easy. Sometimes they become quite violent, quite separated, and awkward. So for me, it's important that we now sit together, because one of the things I realize is that when we bring young people and old people into a room, in the beginning, sometimes there's this jittery experience. The older people are looking, why are all these young people what are they doing here? And young people are saying, oh my word. Now we're going to have all the old people telling us that we're wrong, we don't know anything, we are only on TikTok, and all those judgmental comments. But then when we guide that conversation, you will find that both the youth and the older people are sitting at the edge of the seat, because they get insight into how the other part of their community actually experience the world. So they get to hear elders talk about their life experiences, and what how they sometimes failed, sometimes they didn't live up to the expectations, sometimes they had to work through horrible problems. And young people start to say, oh, but I can relate to that. I never heard older people speak like that. And also vice versa. Older people get to understand, oh, but young people are behaving like this because they are under pressure. It's tough out there. They are responding to dynamics that we were not even aware of, because we don't experience the world the same way. So, in a long way, I'm trying to say we need to create spaces where young and old can listen to each other, learn from each other. And that's when the respect comes. Because what we see in those conversations, when we then have a break, young people, they really sit with the greatest sense of humbleness with elders and say, Baba, thank you so much for sharing with me. Mama, I was so inspired hearing you talk, because they can see that this is a loving experience. And I think we need to get back to that, not just criticize each other.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Well, that being said, I mean, there are a lot. I mean, if we focus on the negative, there are a lot of challenges that we definitely face. When speaking about the dynamics between the youth and the elders, sometimes we have people that are leading us astray with the intent of focusing on money. And sometimes that's an internal, that's our teachers and our leaders who found an area where they can exploit us. And others, also, that's the oppressors who come in and give us propaganda and try to exploit us. Like most of our finances, most of the money, you know, in America, we spend almost $2 trillion a year, but we don't keep any of the money. The money is going in our pockets and right to our oppressors. So we're not able to build generational wealth. So how do we prevent some of these areas where we're exposed to people exploiting us for money?
Right. I think and this is a rich and multifaceted conversation. It's not something that has quick solutions, but it's important that we engage with it. In the beginning of this conversation, we talked about community, and that we need to decide if we are intentionally a community. And I think if we decide that we are intentionally a community, it also means that how I carry myself, what I engage in, how I treat my own family, it's not an individual thing. Me respecting my wife, yes, of course, first and foremost, it's because I must see her as my queen. I want to be in a good relationship with her. But it's also about respecting my neighborhood. It's respecting the elders that are watching over me. It's respecting the children that get to experience what a relationship looks like. And when we get into that, I feel that these are the foundational values for us to also build our economy. We I think around the Pan-African world, we all are marked by having less access to money, which is the currency that seems to symbolize most power in the world as it is today. But I think, and I'm not saying we should not, I'm not saying we should neglect it. I'm not saying we should not pay attention to it. Money is good or bad, but it is important for us where we are in this world today. But I don't want us to reduce it to only money, because even and we've seen this a number of times, that even when some of us get rich or have access to a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily benefit the community. We don't necessarily see that the community is thriving, that our children are better taken care of, that we build schools. Sometimes it does, but it's not an automatic thing. And I think that's where I want us to also remember that we come from a culture of understanding that economy and economics, it's a holistic approach to life. So where I started when I said me as a husband respecting my wife, that is a part of the economy that we are building based on values, based on me conducting myself in relation to a number of other people, respecting other people, carrying myself in such a way that I can honor the people around me. And through that, I will then also want to sit with you. And I think, I don't know how this conversation happens in America, but I know we have a tendency to discuss it like this on the continent, saying that look at Indian communities, look at Chinese communities. They are so together. They are always economically thriving. They come together. You know, but and we, when we say that, we sometimes make the mistake of saying that, but all Indians, they are just together, they have such harmonious cultures. No, they don't. Sometimes they hate each other. Sometimes families will not even want to be in the same room, but they have an economic culture that they have preserved. And we
Wow.
used to have that. Many of us have forgotten it. So we must also learn to sit in the same room, even if we don't see eye to eye on personal matters. Because if our power is important, if our future for our children is important, why should I choose not to sit with you just because I don't like the way you talk? I think you are loud. I think you are full of yourself. Can I just put that to the side and let's discuss building the community center, having a scheme of money, how we save up to make sure the sports activities for our children. I must be able to do that. I can't call myself a man or a woman of stature if I can't do that. So I think that there's something that we struggle with in our relationship with ourselves and each other that we need to overcome so that we can be more open to understand what it means to build a collective economy. And I think we've seen examples of it. We just need to amplify the examples that are there.
Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe. I'm loving what you're saying.
So
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
you were saying that basically we need to be able to be with each other, sit with each other, and recognize that we are basically a community, a family. We are supposed to uplift one another. You also mentioned that a lot of us are known for not having the finances that we need in order to move forward. So that brings me to my next question is understanding the affliction that we've endured for so long, and it's been done in a systematic way across not just, America or not just Africa, but over the diaspora of the planet. It's a systematic issue. So we need a systematic answer. And we also need to finance that systematic approach. So how do we go about financing a systematic approach to come out of our oppression?
Right. So this is a generational project. It's not something that we can undo and overcome in just a few years. And I want to use the example of the pyramids of ancient Kush and Kemet. I'm thinking if you can just transport yourself back to a time where manual labor was the only way to shift and move huge stone blocks to build them into a shape of a pyramid, which is an enormous project in itself. Thousands of people working on the same project, maybe some through their lifetime, some being part of the project, not even seeing the finished result, and still doing the work. I think I'm mentioning that as an example of the courage we need to also have to invest time, sweat, hard labor into doing something that I will not see the finished result of in my lifetime, and still not give up, still not feel that it's not enough, still not be dismayed that I don't see the full outcome of it. So what does that mean in practical terms? I think, again, I always want to say we do have examples. We have the Susu economy here in South Africa. We call it Stokvel economy. And I know that some in the African diaspora also practice it, where people come together and save up. They pay into a pool, a monthly contribution, and then at the end of the year, they take turns who can take out a larger amount of money. And this helps people because often when you want to build something on your house, when you want to buy a car, whatever the case is, you can't just have a little bit of money. You need to have quite a substantial amount. And many of us cannot get that substantial amount quickly. But when you circulate that payout, one after the other gets an opportunity to have access to a larger amount of money. I'm just mentioning an example of an economic power model that helps a lot of our communities to invest, to buy, to prosper. That's an example of things that we can expand on and continue to do on a larger scale. I know that money is very difficult for us, and I want to say this, both for the continent and the diaspora. I don't know if you've thought a lot about this particular thing, but I think part of why finance and money is also so awkward and difficult for us, in addition to the systemic oppression and poverty, it's also that we are within African bodies that once were sold for money. Like we were the money, we were the value in other people's economies. So I think part of that experience sits so strongly with us as well that it's difficult to just have a, how can I say, a neutral relationship with money, because we sit with it's the most painful experience that we collectively have gone through enslavement, through colonization, through apartheid. So I'm saying that not to say that we should then understand that there's not much we can do. I'm saying it that we need to understand how we need to move sensitively, because you know how we often break out in fights or conflicts or have difficult relationships because of money that disappeared, money that we feel somebody took, money that you were supposed to use for this, but now I see you have a car, I'm suspicious, what is this? And sometimes our economic projects end there because we can't get beyond the conflict. And I want us to, in smaller groups, I don't think we can start doing this with masses of people in the beginning. We must do this in smaller enclaves of people where we have certain guidelines. We have started to do that as a community of some families coming together to build a commune. So we own land together, we buy things together, we have a budget that none of us can overspend or spend differently. We meet regularly, we have a lot of management systems. And we are just 4 or 5 families. I mean, we are about 25 people. So it's not a huge community, but for me, it's an example of how I get to teach my children a sense of economic power. Because one thing these children get to experience on a daily basis is power. They walk on land that belongs to them. They are part of a community where every adult is their parent, every child is their sibling. And that in itself make them walk differently. So when they walk into rooms and somebody wants to challenge their Africanness or their blackness, they're not going to back down. They're not going to say, oh, I'm ashamed to be black, I'm ashamed to be African. They will say, let me tell you my story. Let me tell you what I own. Let me tell you who I am. And that sets us up psychologically and spiritually to also handle our power, our economic culture differently. So I hope I hope you're here.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm trying to bring in elements of what I feel very important that we also bring in when we want to build our economy.
Beautiful, beautiful. let me just say this. I love what you just said because, and that's more of a cooperative, I would say, model.
Absolutely.
And I know a couple of people that's doing that, and that's something that we might want to check into, taking ownership, membership, pooling the monies together to help for resources to resolve our internal issues or whatever the case may be. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you
Exactly.
so much.
Now, that being said, I want to bring to the forefront of our minds the direction that Melanation as a company has taken. We've pulled together the finances that we needed to create a multifunctional app. The app itself is going to be one of the biggest apps as far as its functions. It's a social media app. It's something you can download to the television and watch movies. But our direction is for the upliftment of our community. So we're intentionally creating this app with the focus of creating the finances necessary to expand to a larger audience and to uplift and begin investing in Black economics and investing in Black businesses. So our intention is to take 20% of our growth and put it towards the community. We're asking the community what the needs are in different communities, and we put together a group of people, a group of leaders that we call delegates, to determine what's the best use for the finance and how is it going to impact the community. What our priorities are. So that's one of the reasons why we are creating the app, is so that we can pull together, because we have to galvanize the community, not based on our education or not based on our religion beliefs or historical beliefs, not based on where we were born. We wanted to pull together our resources under one umbrella so that we can have a larger amount of finances to make better decisions with. So that's the goal. That's really the primary goal of Melanation. And the app is just a tool to galvanize our people together. But I am 100% in agreement with what you said, as far as we have to be families first, neighbors first, and pull our resources in our local communities. Because as long as our local communities have the resources, then that's the foundation of our overall structure. So I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Thank you so much, and thank you for what you shared. I think that's amazing what you are doing, and let it continue to be a template for how we can pull together and rebuild our economies. It's important to remember that we come from great economic systems in our past. So this is not something that we need to do for the first time. But of course, there is a lot of brokenness. There's a lot of gaps that we need to fill and we need to heal. And I think that healing process is very important as a part of the process of also re-empowering ourselves. So thank you
Yeah.
for the great work that you are doing. It's really an inspiration.
So what other elements, other than basically healing ourselves mentally, what other elements would you say would be inside of a systematic approach?
I think so. Interestingly, I think in South Africa, and I don't know what everyone sees when they look at South Africa from outside, but South Africa has a very strong political movement.
Yes.
I think sometimes that has worked very well for conscientization and understanding the different dynamics of the world, but sometimes it has also been used against people. And I think over the last 10 years, African young people, not only in South Africa, but have been through a political awakening and starting to see really what the dynamics of the world look like, how white supremacy is a power structure, how the Western world does not want to help and support African independence. Quite the contrary. And I think for me, that's an important element of the awakening, to understand. Steve Biko described it as Black consciousness, to understand that the way you appear in this world, even physically, means something. And it's not an individual thing, because you have those Black people who say, but I have never really experienced racism. It's not just about your individual experience. It's about you seeing yourself being part of a people that have been marginalized in a particular way. And that consciousness and awareness is very important if we want to have a systemic approach to how we empower ourselves and how we also react to those systems that are trying to continue to invade, steal, terrorize, and violate our communities. I think, and that's why I'm saying it's a generational project, because a number of the violences that are systematically mounted against us, we don't have right now a full structure that can just stop that instantly. But the awareness of it, the beginning of organizational spaces that are also working to protect communities, to stand up for communities, to work, whether it's in courtrooms, whether it is on organizational spaces, whether it is in international organizational spaces, to stand up for and advocate for the rights of, and decide that we will not bow to these ridiculous expectations that you are presenting to us. That's a very important part of this movement as well. So we've spoken about the inner healing, we've spoken about the collective glue that we need to see ourselves and operate as a community. We are saying that we have a number of templates that we can expand on and reignite for our collective purpose, the political consciousness. And I think, I'm not sure, how do we see our nationhood? These days we are discussing there should be one Africa, one borderless Africa. We're discussing reparations. And then we are discussing who should the reparations go to. Is it fair? Are we really a community? Because some people would argue that no, reparations are for those who are descendants of those who were enslaved. But on the continent, people will also argue that, but the reparations is also due to those who are descendants of those who remained under colonialism. We don't have to go into the details of the conversation now, but I'm just saying that to some of us, this should not be complex conversations, but they actually are. And we need to factor in that maybe we cannot agree on everything right now, but can we identify what we can agree on? And for me, education is something that maybe not all, but many of us agree is important. And many more now than previously agree that Western education is not the best fit for an African child. That's a lot to agree on. So when we then talk about money, we talk about resources, we talk about funding. Can we intentionally build school systems and learning systems and curriculums and education, educate teachers for us to do what many other communities do? Jewish communities do this, Muslim communities do this, Chinese communities do this, because they don't trust any other cultural group to do the education for their children.
True.
And for me, that's a very important start. Education, because through that, you start to learn who you are, you start to navigate the world, you get to know some skills, how to operate. You still need to learn how the world functions now. But where does the African child learn? How can you navigate with this world? With this world being often against you, often ridiculing you, often mocking you. What are the skill set we want you to walk into this world with, so that you don't always have to just feel like you are punched in the face and try to act as somebody you're not. So for me, that's an example of something that many of us can agree on, even if we have some ideological differences, even if we don't agree whether we should teach spirituality or not. Let that be optional then. Like, what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't have to be so difficult. There's a number of things we can do, even if there are a number of other questions that we will still have to find the answers to as we go.
Yes. dropped many jewels in there, especially in reference to the things that we need to keep an eye out on and how to build a systemic approach to the answers to these issues. Now, I don't want to let you off without asking you about this recent decision at the UN that Ghana helped to herald, as far as the statement that chattel slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, was the worst atrocity done to humankind. What are your views on that?
Okay, again, I have a twofold view. I think, in the positive light, I think it's something that many of us have advocated for, spoken about, been to meetings about for many, many, many years. It shouldn't be a strange thing to think about the world acknowledging that the slave trade was the worst crime against humanity. But I think, as African people, we also need to remember that it's not just transatlantic enslavement. There were also trans-Red Sea, trans-Sahara. There's a number of other enslavements that are part of the bigger story seen from an African experience. And we also want that to be acknowledged. So, but having said that, so that's the part that I appreciate. But having said that, we also need to remember that this is set within systems that continue to thrive and operate based on our marginalization. So it doesn't necessarily mean that these systems, their intention is that now they will open up for justice, now they will open up for balance, now they will open up for the true story to be told. But we can use it if we can act collectively. Those of us who work within those systems, because as we know, there are some people who refuse to work in those systems, and that's okay too. Not all of us have to do all the same things all the time. But those who work within those systems, for instance, the legal fraternity, African-centered lawyers, there are a number of reparation cases for which this language is quite important to strengthen cases, to strengthen the narrative that some will say that no, but these things were done at a time when there were no laws against it. And what does that mean? It means that Europe didn't have a law against it. But our societies had laws. Africa had laws. So we need to amplify that voice and speak our truth. So I think maybe the important thing about what happened is, what do we do with it? Because this is not something we should just sit and post on social media about. This is something we should now decide. Do we have a group of lawyers who are willing to work on weekends? Are we giving them some resources so that they can actually be practically working on creating precedences in legal systems in this world that we live, which of course is under Western law, for reparations, if that's what we want. So I'm saying two things. I think it's a small step forward in the recognition. It's definitely not a sealed case, but it's more about, what do we do with that? How do we amplify that? What do we do practically if reparations and justice is something that we really, really want?
Ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you, Ashe.
So that was the last question that I had for you. I mean, I really could ask you so many different questions, and you give answers with levels to it. And because there's levels to the solutions and the answers that you have, that always raises additional questions. So but I definitely appreciate your knowledge and your expertise that you've given us, and we have it on record. I want you to know, and I want our audience to know, that Melanation, our primary objective is to put together a systematic approach to Black economics. That is our primary objective. That's why we're having these sessions, so that we can find, learn, utilize any knowledge that we didn't have prior, so we can implement it and put our finances behind it. Because the more minds that we have come together, the stronger our system can be. So I just want to thank you again for coming on. You're always welcome to come on anytime. And, just let you know we really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much. I am very honored, both by being invited and also to sit in a conversation with family members. This is a true experience of sitting with family. And if I can just chip in very quickly at the end of this conversation, that we also open up, we stretch out our hands also to the African diaspora. I think this is important to say, because there's this narrative out there that there's a conflict between Africans on the continent and African descendants. We reach out our hands and welcome African descendants back to the continent. And we are an organization that we may not promote this so much, but because we are a community, we often welcome people from the diaspora who are interested to understand more about culture, who may want to be part of an initiation, who may want to meet a healer, who may want to meet a community, who might want to spend some time in a village. Like, there could be so many different things. And we are open to those requests. And maybe through you, you will advise your members how they could get to us. But we are very open to receive the requests, contacts, communication, advice. We are here. So for everyone who needs it, don't say you don't know anyone in Africa. Now you do.
Ashe. Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Ashe.
One more. Ashe.
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 That being said, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. We are here live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. We look forward to seeing you then. Everyone have a good day, night, evening, because, I know we're talking to someone in West Africa right now. He's 7, 8, or 9 hours ahead of us. So have a good night. And here in Arizona, it's first thing in the morning. So going to have some breakfast.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.